Okay, Dasha, you're live on the air. Go ahead with your question.
Rabbi. I want to ask you about Josephus. Um, how do the Jews feel about what he says, and does he have any part in the development of Christianity? And I want to know the passage about Jesus. Some say it wasn't inserted until after the fourth century. I want to know if any of this is true. Thank you.
Thank you. Great questions. The second question is so much easier to answer than the first. So the first one I can dispense with easily. I'm not sure. The consensus is that Josephus had nothing to do with inventing Christianity, but there are people, many of them I respect. I've done shows with many of them. Many of them are scholars who think that that the Flavian dynasty created Christianity. There are some people who believe that the book of Luke is based on or is taken from Josephus and therefore would date Luke much later into the second century. That's not fringe. It's an outlier, but it's not fringe. I personally don't feel the evidence for it is strong enough to persuade me to believe it, but I certainly would consider it. I mean, it's something I think about quite a bit. Now, this is going to tie in a way that's unexpected to the monumental question about did Josephus write about Jesus? And well, if you ordered the book of Josephus on Amazon or went online, you would definitely find it in what's called Testimonium Flavium, which is the book of Antiquities, 18:3. But that is definitely a later interpolation. It's not original to Josephus. Josephus didn't write that. Now, there are some people who say he wrote some version of it, but everyone I know of knows that that text is a corruption. The only thing is there are some scholars who say maybe some skeletal version of it was written by Josephus and that it sort of grew and they just kept adding stuff onto it because whoever wrote it would have believed that, Jesus was the Messiah and he was, and he did miracles and wonders and he was a man, if you can call him a man. So there's so much Christology baked into it. It is certainly a corruption. And I can assure you it's a complete corruption. That's very, very clear. Josephus was not a Christian. One of the most brilliant Christian thinkers, his name was Origen, who was a 3rd century church doctor, who says openly that Josephus did not believe in Jesus. He says that in his commentary on Matthew chapter 16. And the first time we find Testimonium Flavium, Antiquities was written about 93, 94, is in Eusebius, meaning in the 4th century. Eusebius was a contemporary of Constantine. He was a contemporary of the Council of Nicaea. So he's the guy responsible for this. Bear in mind that the ante-Nicene church fathers, a ton of them knew Josephus, quoted Josephus, and none of them went, and here's Testimonium Flavium. So that text was a later corruption, was inserted later. As I said, there are some people who insist in the secular academic world that perhaps a part of it originally was there, and then, but what we see today is a corruption. But that's not the case. The whole thing is a later interpolation, and As far as James go, which is who is said to be the brother of Christ, I think that was a side note that was in the book that eventually crept into the text. One other point I think is important. Josephus's works survived through the church. I think that's important to remember. Josephus's works survived through the church, so it's no doubt was completely corrupted. It's interesting that Testimonium Flavium, this again famed text from Antiquities, is almost certainly picked up from Luke chapter 24, where Jesus appears to the folks in Emmaus, and it's strikingly similar. So it's interesting that at first glance, it would appear that your two questions about Josephus are thoroughly disconnected, but they're not, because as it turns out, Testimonium Flavium very likely is taken from the book of Luke in the resurrection account in chapter 24. So great questions. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed this program, please like and subscribe.
אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נעשה בחפצו כל